Peace, guys. How's it going? Patrick, Conservative Rap, and welcome to this episode of Geopolitical Financial News, a roundup, if you will, of current circumstances within the political landscape. Not only the history of what got us to this point, but also the significance of some of these geopolitical shifts, where we're going as a country into a golden age where we can look forward to the financial as well as the cultural renaissance of an American first golden age philosophy. Cover a few things. Just to talk about hypocrisy, Elizabeth McDonald on X put this out. This is about the IRS. So it's tax day. This was yesterday, the 15th. Today is the 16th as of this recording. And thousands of IRS workers and contractors still owe a combined total of nearly 50 million in overdue taxes. The IRS itself. 3,323 IRS employees had unpaid federal taxes, with 2,044 of them not enrolled in any sort of payment plan, collectively owing over 12 million. Additionally, 2,484 IRS contractor employees owed taxes, with 1,729 not on payment plans. Despite the IRS's authority to terminate employees who willfully fail to pay taxes, only 20 of the 70 agents identified as willfully avoiding taxes were terminated. And between 2004 and 2024, the IRS identified 1,650 IRS employees who willfully violated tax laws. Offenses included improperly claiming dependents, repeatedly failing to file timely tax returns, and falsely claiming tax credits. Despite a 1998 law mandating termination for such violations, only 39% of the 1,580 employees caught evading taxes between 2004 to 2013 were fired, resigned, or retired, while 61% received lesser penalties such as suspensions or simple reprimands. This as Democrats demand 80 billion for 87,000 more agents and workers to audit you to pay for record government overspending. It's now been cut to 38 billion. So it goes to show you how some of these people think, right? Rules for them, not for us. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but I think with the tariff psychology and the downstream effects of it starting to slowly pay off, by this time next year, we may be talking about eliminating income tax, at least at the federal level overall. Libs of TikTok put this out on X. A Chinese government official actually bugging out. It's a nice video. I think you should check it out. China Unhinged. A Chinese official calls U.S. citizens peasants who are going to be crying tears over an alleged tariff backfire. They're so mad that they can't rip the U.S. off anymore. It's a great, forget the phrase for it, but there's a great trade imbalance between China and America. Not just the IP theft, which has been rampant for decades even, but their entire economy effectively is based off them being able to exploit the trade and tariff imbalance that's been also just rampant for decades on end. Next, from Red State, check this out. Just in contrast, Taiwan president sounds hopeful about first round of tariff talks. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te on Monday indicated that the first round of trade talks with the Trump administration has gone smoothly. That's a hopeful note, especially given that Taiwan is a major manufacturer of semiconductors, which are essential in the operation of almost everything. It's not clear whether the Taiwan plus one comment indicates that President Lai is looking for some kind of executive arrangement. It's unlikely in the extreme that the Trump administration would be open to the exclusive arrangement, and Taiwan knows this, especially with all of the overtures being made to the U.S. by countries around the world. Note, Canada has also announced a temporary 6-month relief from counter tariffs on U.S. goods used in manufacturing, processing, and food and beverage packaging. So people are starting to realize the tariffs are actually working. China effectively may be the only one left out of this group. And I think if we kind of understand the macroeconomics and the history of their exploitation of really alongside many of the Democrat and Rhino politicians who've been in charge of these economic policies for the last few generations, it's long overdue. Next, from Just the News, check this out. Arkansas Senate passes bill allowing gold to be used as a transactional currency for state matters. The Arkansas State Senate on Monday unanimously approved a bill that would allow the state to store gold and silver in a depository, which would be used for backing and for electronic transactions. The state Senate approved the legislation in a 33-0 vote. One member voted present and a second lawmaker was excused. The House bill, which now passed both chambers, still needs to be signed in Arkansas GOP. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. If Sanders does sign the bill, Arkansas would be the first state to formally accept gold and silver as an electronic state currency. A similar bill passed the Utah legislature but was vetoed by Governor Spencer Cox last week. Sanders is expected to sign, of course, the measure. Welcome to the new reality, guys. This is going to be, I think, the first. Just these are what do you call it? The tea leaves about what's going to become the new Trumpnomics of where we're headed as a country, and I'm extremely excited. I think all of us should be. Next, from Zero Hedge. No, a 50% tariff doesn't mean a 50% price hike, and this is just a counter narrative to what you may be hearing in a lot of the mainstream media, including more conservative or technically, let's say, Trump-aligned, commentators. So let's make one thing clear. A tariff applies to the transaction value, not the final retail price. The transaction value is what the importer pays the exporter plus freight and insurance. The cost is just the first step in a long supply chain. By the time a product reaches the consumer, it's been marked up to cover domestic shipping, warehousing, employee wages, utilities, sales tax, and profit margins for every hand that it passes through. The tariff is just one input among many. So let's take a simple example. A retailer imports a widget with a $100 transaction value, adds a 50% tariff, and the cost to the importer becomes $150. The importer then sells it wholesale, perhaps at $200 to a retailer, who marks it up again to $300 for sale. That $50 tariff is now 16.7% of the retail price. Even if every penny of the tariff passed along, you're not looking at a 50% increase in retail price. You're looking at something closer to 17%. Here's the kicker. Tariffs are not always fully passed on to the consumer. In my mind, this is obvious, but just for people who need to hear it, and in case, whether it's family, friends, or just what you're seeing around you, importers and retailers know they can't raise prices beyond what the market will bear. Sometimes they absorb part of the cost, cut expenses, renegotiate contracts, or shift to different suppliers entirely. The market reacts. It doesn't just lie down and take it. Still not convinced? Let's look at some real world data. And Zero Hedge continues to go into example, but just the fear mongering and the brainwashing that passes as common economic news coverage really just does us all a disservice. And as you and I know, it's really not that simple. These articles and this sort of material, I think, is great in terms of our word tracks to counter the narratives. In my mind, the deep state really only has a very small window before we start to see some of the positive downstream effects that the Trump administration is initially putting in within these first few months and weeks. So in conclusion, and I'm going to quote Clandestine on X, I think he sums it up pretty nicely. The EU currently negotiating for a new trade deal to avoid tariffs, and NVIDIA announced that they're moving all manufacturing for supercomputers to the US, which is a $500 billion investment to avoid tariffs. Kind of sounds like Trump's plan is starting to work. Just saying. Thanks, guys, for listening. Feel free to comment down below. What do you think about the economic reality that we're heading into? Are we going into a golden age? Are you concerned about some of the tariffs and some of the trade, let's say trade wars? That's what they are. Or is this long overdue, and can we look forward to much more of a positive economic reality, whether it's taxation, cost of good, jobs, energy, everything. Look forward to more shortly, and thanks for taking a listen.